Did you know that for 500 years, millions of people survived the apocalypse by simply disappearing? While history books obsessed over kings and stone castles, entire communities in medieval Europe vanished into the ground to escape a world that had turned against them. They discovered a secret that modern science has only just confirmed. When the surface world freezes, the earth remembers the sun. This is the story of how they survived. Welcome back to Boring History for Sleep.
Tonight, we are going to leave the modern world behind. We are going to turn off the notifications, the electricity, and the constant hum of the 21st century. We are going to travel back 700 years to a time when silence was the loudest thing on earth.
We are going to a small village in Bavaria. The year is somewhere in the early 1300s, but the specific date doesn't matter. In this world, calendars are less important than the sky, and the sky has been gray for weeks.
This is the era that climatologists now call the Little Ice Age. It was a time when the global temperature dropped, when the glaciers of the Alps began to march forward, crushing forests and swallowing valleys. It was a time when the winters didn't just visit, they settled in, they stayed.
I want you to imagine the cold. Not the inconvenience of a chilly morning where you have to scrape ice off your windshield. I want you to imagine a cold that has weight, a cold that feels like a physical presence pressing against the landscape. It is a cold that turns the ground into iron. From around 900 AD to the late medieval period, the people of this region faced a reality that is hard for us to comprehend. The surface world was becoming hostile. The wind chill could strip the heat from a human body in minutes. The wooden houses, built with simple tools, leaked heat like sieves.
But they found a solution that was elegant, silent, and hidden.
Tonight, we are going to join a young girl named Agnes. We are going to walk in her footsteps. We are going to feel the crunch of the snow beneath our boots. And we are going to discover the secret of the Erdstall, the Earth House. So get yourself comfortable, adjust your pillows, let your shoulders drop away from your ears. Unclench your jaw. Let the heavy, warm darkness of your own room hold you. Because where we are going, the cold is waiting, but so is the shelter.
Let's establish the atmosphere of the surface world.
It is just before dawn. The sun has not yet risen, but the sky is beginning to turn a pale bruised purple in the east. The light is flat and shadowless. It reveals a world that has been erased by snow.
The snow has been falling for days. It has filled the valleys. It has smoothed over the rough, rutted cart tracks that lead to the market. It has buried the fences that separate the wheat fields from the pasture. Everything is white, a deep, sound-absorbing white. If you were standing there right now, the first thing you would notice is the silence. Snow is a brilliant acoustic insulator. Fresh, powdery snow is composed of up to 90% trapped air. When sound waves hit the snow, they enter the pores and bounce around, losing energy with every reflection. The result is a landscape that swallows noise. There are no birds singing. They are huddled deep in the pine trees, fluffed up against the frost. There is no water running. The streams are frozen solid, locked in suspended animation until spring. There is only the sound of your own blood rushing in your ears, and perhaps the sudden sharp crack of a tree branch.
The temperature is 0 degrees Fahrenheit, perhaps lower. At this temperature, moisture freezes instantly. Every time you exhale, your breath creates a dense cloud of fog that hangs in the still air before crystallizing and drifting to the ground. Your eyelashes accumulate frost.
The hair inside your nose stiffens.
This is the world of the surface. It is beautiful in a stark, terrifying way, but it is deadly.
For the peasants living here, this cold is not just weather. It is a predator. It waits outside the door, looking for a gap in the wall, a crack in the window frame, a hole in the cloak. It seeks to equalize the temperature, to drag everything living down to its own frozen stillness.
Agnes is asleep in this world.
She is inside one of the small thatched cottages that cluster together near the church. From the outside, the house looks like a part of the landscape. The roof is steep, designed to shed snow, but the snow has accumulated anyway, forming a thick, insulating blanket over the thatch. The house is dark. There are no street lights, no ambient glow from a nearby city. The only light comes from the stars, which are sharp and hard in the winter sky. This is a world of extremes, the extreme quiet, the extreme white, the extreme cold, and in the center of it, a small, fragile bubble of human life, trying to keep its heart beating until the sun comes back.
Let's go inside. The transition from outside to inside is not as dramatic as you might think.
You are Agnes. You are 12 years old, and you are waking up. The first sensation is not sight, but feeling. You are cold. You are lying on a pallet made of raised wooden planks, piled high with straw. The straw is old. It was harvested last autumn, and it has been compressed by months of sleeping. It smells of dry grass and dust. Beneath you, it rustles softly every time you shift your weight, a dry, whispering sound that emphasizes the dryness of the air. You are covered by a blanket. It is a heavy, scratchy thing, woven from raw sheep's wool. It is not soft like modern fleece. It is thick, oily, and smells of the animal it came from. This blanket has a history. It was passed down from your grandmother, a woman who died before you were born, but whose labor still keeps you warm. You pull the wool tighter around your shoulders, tucking your chin into your chest to preserve your body heat. Your eyes open. The darkness is absolute. It is not the diluted darkness of a city bedroom, where light pollution paints the walls in shades of gray. This is the heavy, suffocating blackness of a windowless room in the middle of winter. You breathe in, the air tastes sharp. It tastes like frost. Every breath you take leaves your body as a warm cloud and cools instantly against your lips. You can feel the temperature of the room on the tip of your nose, on your cheeks, on your ears. The fire has gone out. You know this without looking. You can feel the absence of its heat. The hearth, which is the heart of the home, is cold. Your father, Wolf, had stayed up late trying to keep it alive. You remember the sound of him moving in the dark, breaking the last of the dried wood, feeding it splinter by splinter into the flames. But exhaustion is a powerful force. It wins eventually. He fell asleep. The wood had burned down to ash, and now the cold has reclaimed the room.
The walls of your house are built of wattle and daub.
Let's look at this construction. The wattle is a woven lattice of wooden strips, usually hazel or willow, flexible and springy. It looks like a giant basket. The daub is the plaster smeared over it, a mixture of clay, soil, straw, and animal dung. When it is dry and thick, it is a decent insulator. But your house is old. The daub has cracked. The clay has shrunken the dry winter air. As you lie there in the silence, you can hear the wind. It whistles through the gaps in the walls. It is a high, thin sound, like a flute played by a ghost. It is the sound of the outside world trying to get in. Your house, you think to yourself,
is held together by dirt and wishful thinking.
Somewhere in the pile of blankets next to you, there is a lump. It is your little brother, Oswin. He is 7. He has burrowed so deep into the straw that he has effectively disappeared. He is a master of hibernation. You can hear his slow, steady breathing, muffled by layers of wool.
Then a sound from the hearth.
Scrape, scrape. It is the sound of iron against stone. Your mother, Edith, is awake. She is trying to resurrect the fire. You can imagine her in the dark, her hands rough from work, her eyes squinting against the gloom, trying to find a single glowing ember in the pile of gray ash.
Agnes! Her voice cuts through the dark. It is soft, barely a whisper, so as not to wake Oswin.
Come help me.
You do not want to move. Every instinct in your mammal brain tells you to stay in the nest, to stay where the heat is. To move is to freeze.
But you push the blanket aside. You sit up. The cold air wraps around you instantly, sliding under your tunic, biting at your skin.
You swing your legs over the edge of the pallet. Your bare feet touch the floor. The floor is made of earth, packed dirt, and right now it is literally frozen. You can feel the hard, jagged ridges where the mud has frozen solid. It feels like stepping onto stone. You fumble in the dark for your shoes. They are rough leather, patched and repatched by your father. You jam your cold feet into them. At the hearth, a tiny flame flickers to life. It is weak, yellow, and smoky, but it is light. It casts long, dancing shadows against the walls. It illuminates your mother's face. She looks tired. She always looks tired. But today, she looks urgent.
Your father wants to show you something, she whispers. Something important.
She gestures to the door. Gray light is bleeding through the cracks. You wrap your cloak around you. You prepare yourself. You are leaving the fragile safety of the house. You are going out into the white. Stepping outside is a physical shock. The cold hits you like a slap to the face. It makes your eyes water instantly. It freezes the moisture in your nostrils. It is a clean, sharp, aggressive cold. Your father is waiting for you. His name is Wolf. He is a man shaped by hard work and harder winters. He is wrapped in a thick cloak made of sheepskin, the fleece turned inward to trap his body heat. His beard is frosted with ice from his own breath. He does not say good morning. He does not ask how you slept. He simply says, "Come." He turns and walks away from the house toward the edge of the village. You follow him. You step into his footprints to save energy. The snow is deep, reaching up to your calves. Walking through it is slow, laborious work. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The sound of your boots breaking the crust of the snow is the only noise in the world. The village is asleep. The paths are empty. He leads you past the other houses, past the frozen well, toward the low hills that rise behind the village. You have walked this path 1,000 times. In the summer, this is where the goats graze. In the autumn, this is where you gather berries. But now, it is a wasteland, just a slope of white, broken only by the black skeletons of bare trees. He stops at a pile of stones. It looks like nothing, just a heap of rubble. Perhaps the ruins of an old wall that crumbled years ago. Snow has drifted over it, softening the edges. Dead grass pokes through the white patches. Your father stands looking at it. There is a strange expression on his face. It is not his usual grimace of endurance. It is something else. Pride, maybe? Or anticipation? "Look carefully," he says. You look, you see nothing but rocks and snow. "I don't see anything," you say. He kneels down in the snow. He ignores the cold soaking into his knees.
With his bare hands, hands that are cracked and weathered like old wood, he begins to brush the snow away from one of the large rocks.
But as he clears it, you realize it isn't a rock.
It is wood.
It is a heavy wooden plank, cleverly covered with stones and moss to look like the earth around it. It is camouflage. It is a secret hidden in plain sight. He grips the edge of the wood. He grunts with effort. He lifts. The cover rises, and beneath it, the earth opens up. It is a hole, a square, dark mouth in the white snow. Steps have been carved directly into the dirt, descending steeply into the darkness. You stare at it. It looks like a grave. It looks like a trap. "This is our earth house," your father says. His voice is solemn. "Your grandfather built it, and his father before him." He steps into the hole. He descends, his head disappearing below the level of the snow.
"Come!" His voice echoes up from the ground.
You stand at the edge. The wind bites at your cheeks. The sun is just starting to touch the tops of the trees, casting long blue shadows across the snow. Every instinct you have tells you to stay in the light. Humans belong on the surface. Humans belong where they can see the horizon.
But then you feel it. A gentle current of air is rising from the hole. It brushes against your face. It is warm.
Not hot, not like a fire, but warm. It smells of loam and clay and ancient dust. It is a breath of life coming from the throat of the world.
You take a step. You leave the blinding white world behind. You descend into the earth. As you descend, the environment changes instantly. The steps are narrow and uneven. They are carved into packed earth, reinforced in places with old wooden planks that have turned black with age. You have to duck your head. The passage angles downward sharply. You reach out your hand to steady yourself against the wall. This is the first surprise. The wall is smooth. It has been polished. Countless hands over countless years have brushed against this clay as they descended, wearing away the roughness until it feels almost like skin. The light from the surface is gone now. You are in total darkness. But ahead, there is a faint golden glow. Your father has stopped. He has struck a flint. He lights a small oil lamp that sits in a niche carved into the wall. The flame sputters, then catches. A warm yellow light floods the tunnel. You reach the bottom of the stairs. You stop. You just breathe.
The air down here is completely different from the air above. Above, the air was thin, sharp, and painful. It stole moisture from your body. Here, the air is heavy. It is humid. It feels substantial in your lungs.
And the temperature? How? You whisper. Your father turns to look at you. The lamplight dances in his eyes. The earth remembers warmth, he says.
Let's pause the narrative for a moment to understand the science of what Agnes is feeling. This is the physics of the geothermal constant.
The surface of the earth is subject to wild fluctuations. In Bavaria, in the winter, the surface temperature can drop to minus 20 degrees Celsius. In the summer, it can rise to 30 degrees. The top layer of soil, the frost zone, freezes and thaws along with the air. But soil is an incredible insulator. It is dense. It traps air pockets. It resists the transfer of heat. As you dig deeper, the effect of the sun and the wind diminishes. Once you get below the frost line, which in this part of Europe is about 3 feet or 1 meter deep, the temperature stabilizes. Down here, at a depth of 6 to 10 feet, the Earth maintains a constant temperature year-round. It is the average temperature of the location. In this region, that is roughly 50 degrees Fahrenheit, or 10 degrees Celsius. 3 feet down, your father explains, tapping the dirt wall. The ground holds steady. Summer and winter, it doesn't change.
To a modern person, 50 degrees might sound chilly. It is the temperature of a cool autumn evening. It is the temperature of a root cellar.
But you have to understand the relativity of comfort. 10 minutes ago, Agnes was standing in 0-degree weather with a wind chill that made it feel like 20 below. Her body was burning calories furiously just to keep her heart beating. Her extremities were going numb. Stepping into 50-degree air feels like stepping into a warm bath. It feels tropical. It feels like a miracle. Your father continues deeper into the tunnel.
Your grandfather figured it out watching his cellar, he says. The vegetables never froze, so he dug deeper and deeper until he had this.
He stops at a corner where the tunnel turns sharply.
This passage, he points to the slope, angles downward for the first 10 feet. You know why?
You shake your head.
Cold air sinks, he says. Warm air rises.
This is another piece of brilliant intuitive engineering. By angling the entrance tunnel down before it goes up into the living chamber, the builders created a cold sink. The freezing air from the surface flows down the steps like water. It pools at the bottom of the dip. It effectively creates a plug of cold air that prevents the rest of the freezing draft from entering the main chamber. The warm air generated by bodies and lamps inside the chamber rises, but it is trapped by the ceiling. The cold air never reaches us, your father says, tapping his temple. Your grandfather couldn't read a single word, but he understood something that the builders of great cathedrals probably never thought about. You are standing inside a machine made of dirt and gravity, designed to harvest the heat of the planet itself. The passage widens. You step into the main chamber. It is a room, an actual room carved out of the living rock and clay of the hill.
The ceiling is low, maybe 6 feet high. You can stand upright, but your father has to stoop slightly. The roof is supported by thick wooden beams, blackened timber that looks like it has been here for a century. These beams are the ribs of the hill, holding back the weight of the tons of earth above you. The walls are not just raw dirt. They have been worked. They are packed hard, smoothed with water and flat stones until they have a texture like pottery.
In the flickering light of the oil lamp, you see details that you never expected to find underground. Someone has painted the walls. There are simple shapes in red ochre and brown charcoal, a cross to bless the space, a shape that might be a tree representing life, and handprints. Small handprints pressed into the clay when it was wet. Who are they, you wonder? They are the children who came before you. Your aunts, your uncles, your ancestors. They left their mark here, a message across time saying, "We were here, we survived, and so will you." There is a raised platform along one wall. It is a shelf carved out of the earth, about 2 feet off the ground. It is covered with a thick layer of dry straw and piled high with sheepskins and furs. For sleeping, your father says. It looks infinitely more comfortable than your bed in the drafty house above. Here, there is no wind. Here, the straw is dry. Niches have been carved into the walls to serve as shelves. They hold pottery jars sealed with wax, wooden bowls, a small stash of firewood. In the corner, you see another tunnel leading off into the darkness. There's more, your father says. 3 chambers in total. This one is for living. There is another for storing food. He points to the dark tunnel, and that passage connects to Eric's farm. You blink. Eric is your neighbor. He lives a quarter of a mile away. You realize with a jolt that while you have been walking over the snow between your houses for your entire life, there has been a secret connection beneath your feet the whole time.
Eric's farm?
you ask? In case we need to escape without being seen, your father says.
This changes everything. This isn't just a hole, it is a network. It is a subterranean village mirroring the one above.
Suddenly, movement catch your eye. Something small and dark scuttles along the wall near the floor. You tense up. Your hand instinctively goes to your belt, looking for a weapon.
It is a rat. It pauses, twitches its nose at you, and disappears into a tiny crack in the clay.
Your father doesn't even flinch. He watches the spot where the rat vanished. "Rats we can handle," he says quietly. He turns to you. His face is serious. The pride he showed when explaining the ventilation is gone. It is replaced by a dark, heavy gravity.
It's the other things we built this for, he says.
"What other things?" you ask. He looks at you. He really looks at you. In that way adults do when they are deciding how much truth the child can handle.
Men, he says simply. Men are what we hide from.
The word hangs in the warm, still air.
Last winter, he continues, word came that a band of armed men was moving through the forest. 20 of them, maybe more.
You didn't know this. You were asleep or playing or simply too young to be told.
The whole village came down here, he says. 43 people in 3 connected earth houses for 11 days.
You try to imagine it. 43 people crammed into these small clay rooms, breathing the same air, waiting in the dark while boots crunched on the snow above their heads.
"We heard them pass by overhead," he whispers. "Horses, wagons. They found the village empty. They took what they could carry. The grain, the chickens, your mother's best cooking pot." He pauses. "But they didn't find us. They couldn't, because we weren't there. We were here." You look around the room again. It doesn't look like a cellar anymore. It looks like a fortress. A fortress made not of stone walls and towers, but of secrecy and silence.
"That's why you are here today, Agnes," he says. "Because someday you will need to know this place exists. You will need to know how to find it, how to survive in it."
He puts his hand on your shoulder. It is heavy and warm.
The entrance is hidden for a reason. The tunnels connect for a reason. Everything down here is here for a reason.
He looks deep into the tunnel, into the dark.
And now, he says, it is time for you to learn all of it.
We are back in the chamber. You are standing with your father, Wolf. The air is still 50 degrees, that constant earthen embrace.
But then the world changes.
It does not change with a shout or a scream. It changes with a vibration. Above your head, separated from you by 3 feet of soil, packed clay and snow, a bell begins to ring.
It is the village bell. It hangs in the small wooden tower of the church, exposed to the freezing wind. When it rings, it usually sends a sharp metallic clang across the valley.
But down here, the sound is different. The earth acts as a filter. It strips away the high frequencies, the sharp edges of the sound, and leaves only the low, rhythmic thud. It sounds like a giant heart beating in the sky. Thump, thump, thump. You freeze. Your father freezes.
In a medieval village, the bell is the only mass communication system. It rings for prayer. It rings for weddings. But this is neither of those. The rhythm is fast, urgent.
It rings for only 2 reasons: fire or men approaching.
Your father's face undergoes a transformation. The soft look of pride he wore while showing you the ventilation shaft vanishes. In its place settles a mask of absolute, practiced efficiency.
"Stay here," he says. He does not yell. In the Earth House, you never yell. Panic consumes oxygen. Panic makes noise. He speaks in a low, flat register.
If I don't come back in 1 hour, he says, take your brother and your mother and come down. Use the tunnel to Eric's.
He moves to the stairs. He climbs up toward the gray square of light that marks the surface world. He pushes the heavy wooden cover aside and vanishes into the white glare.
You are alone. You stand in the silence of the clay room. You count your heartbeats. The oil lamp in the niche flickers, casting long, nervous shadows that stretch and contract against the walls.
1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes.
You strain your ears. You are trying to listen through the ceiling. You hear shouting. It is muffled, distorted by the dirt. It sounds like voices heard underwater, but the tone is unmistakable. This is not the shouting of neighbors arguing over a property line. This is the shouting of fear.
Then, footsteps.
They are coming down the passage. They are heavy, fast, and desperate.
Your heart slams against your ribs. You look around for a weapon. There is a wooden ladle on the shelf. You grab it. It is ridiculous, a spoon against a sword, but it is the only thing your hand can find.
The footsteps get louder. A figure bursts into the lamplight.
It is your mother.
Her face is pale, but her eyes are clear. She is not panicking. She is executing a program. Behind her is your father, carrying your little brother Oswin in his arms. Oswin is still half asleep. He is wearing his woolen nightshirt. He is clutching his favorite toy, a small, rough-carved wooden horse. He looks confused, blinking in the sudden change of light.
Move, your father says.
Just that one word. He sets Oswin down on the sleeping platform. He turns back to the tunnel entrance.
More people are coming.
This is the secret of the network. It is not just for your family. The tunnels connect.
Old Gerda appears from the shadows of the connecting passage. She is the village elder, a woman who has survived more winters than anyone can count. She moves with surprising speed, her gray hair wild around her face.
Then comes Henrik, the blacksmith's son. He is a giant of a man, broad-shouldered and usually loud. Today, he is silent. He is practically carrying his wife, Martra. Martra is pregnant, heavily pregnant. Her belly is round as the moon, straining against her dress. Her face is slick with sweat, despite the cold. She stumbles on the uneven floor, but Henrik holds her up, guiding her to the back of the chamber. Then the widow Brunhild arrives with her 4 children. The youngest is a toddler, barely 2 years old. She is crying, a thin, high wail that bounces off the hard clay walls.
Keep them quiet, your father whispers. He is looking up the passage toward the wooden cover. For the love of God, keep the children quiet.
The chamber is filling up. What was a spacious room for 2 people is now a crowded bunker for a dozen. The air temperature begins to rise immediately from the body heat. The smell changes. It smells of unwashed wool, damp leather, garlic, and the sharp metallic tang of adrenaline.
Your father reaches up. He grabs a heavy wooden beam that leans against the wall. He climbs the first few steps of the entrance tunnel and wedges the beam against the trapdoor.
He locks the world out.
He steps back down. He looks at the group. He holds a finger to his lips.
The raid has begun. Let's pause to consider the physics of what is happening right now.
You are sitting in a hole in the ground. Above you is a layer of timber beams. Above that is a layer of waterproofing, usually birch bark or clay tiles. Above that is 3 feet of compacted soil, and above that is 2 feet of snow.
This barrier is your entire universe.
Soil is a multi-phase material. It consists of solid particles, minerals, liquid, water, and gas, air. When sound waves strike the ground, the energy is rapidly dissipated as it moves through these different phases. High-frequency sounds, like speech or the clinking of metal, are absorbed almost instantly.
But low-frequency sounds, impacts, travel well.
Thump. The ceiling shakes. Dust trickles down from between the beams, landing in your hair.
How many? Gerda asks. Her voice is a whisper, barely audible over the breathing of the group.
20 at least, your father replies softly. Maybe 30. They came from the North Road, armed. Swords, axes. They have a wagon.
The mention of a wagon is significant. Men on horses raid and leave. Men with wagons are here to steal. They are here for the grain. They are here for the heavy items.
Did anyone see you come this way? Asks Hendrik, his arm wrapped protectively around his pregnant wife.
I don't think so, your father says. Most of them headed for the storehouse first.
Above you, there is a crash. Heavy, violent. It sounds like a door being kicked in. Oswin whimpers. He is 7 years old. He knows something is wrong, but he doesn't understand the geometry of the threat. He starts to cry.
Shh, little one, your mother whispers. She pulls him onto her lap. She rocks him. We are playing the quiet game now. Remember the quiet game?
She frames survival as a challenge. Whoever makes the least noise wins.
But the toddler, Brunhild's youngest, does not understand games. She is 2. She understands only that it is dark, it is crowded, and her mother is terrified. She begins to scream.
In a confined acoustic space, a scream is a physical assault. It bounces off the hard clay walls. It amplifies. If the men above are listening, if they are standing near the ventilation shafts, they might hear it.
Give her to me, Gerda says.
Brunhild hesitates.
Give her to me, Gerda insists. I raised 6 of my own and buried 4.
The old woman takes the child. She does not shush her. She does not rock her frantically. Instead, she begins a rhythmic tapping pattern on the little girl's back. Tap, tap, pause. Tap, tap, pause. It is a physiological hack. The rhythm mimics a heartbeat. It interrupts the child's breathing pattern.
Within 30 seconds, the crying stops. The toddler's eyes are still open, wet with tears, but she is calm. She sticks her thumb in her mouth and watches the lamp flame dance.
My grandmother taught me that, Gerda whispers. Works on goats, too.
Henrik lets out a snort of laughter. It is involuntary, a release of tension. He clamps his hand over his mouth immediately, his eyes wide with horror.
Silence returns.
You listen. You count to 10, 20, 30. Nothing happens. The earth has done its job. The sound did not escape. Then a new sensory input arrives. Smell. At first, you think it is just the lamp oil, but it is sharper, acrid. It catches in the back of your throat.
Smoke, your father whispers.
He looks up at the ceiling. Thin wisps of gray haze are curling down through the microscopic cracks in the clay. They're burning something, Henrik says. The storehouse. If they can't take all the grain, they burn it. Panic ripples through the room. Fire is the great enemy of the underground. Not because of the flames, the fire cannot burn through 3 feet of dirt, but because of the oxygen. Fire consumes air. Smoke displaces it. If the smoke fills the chamber, you will suffocate.
She covers her mouth, her eyes wide with apology.
There is air coming through the passage, your father says quickly. The tunnel to Eric's. His entrance is on the other side of the hill. The smoke can't reach that far.
We move, he commands. Slowly, quietly.
You stand up, your legs are shaking. You grab your mother's dress. You form a single file line. You begin the crawl through the sloop, the slip passage.
It is a journey through the intestines of the hill. You are moving away from the fire, deeper into the dark, seeking the pockets of clean air that the earth has preserved for you.
You arrive in Eric's chamber.
It is crowded. Eric's family is already there, along with the Tanner's family and old Hans. There are 43 people now, hidden in a network of 3 connected rooms.
The smoke does not follow you here. The ventilation works. Eric explains it simply. My entrance slopes up. Smoke rises. It escapes before it reaches us.
And now the waiting begins.
Time is a strange thing when you remove the sun.
On the surface, we measure time by light, dawn, noon, dusk. We measure it by the shadow of a tree or the ringing of the church bell. But down here, there is no sun. There are no shadows. There is only the lamp.
Minutes stretch into hours. Hours stretch into something that feels like days.
You sit pressed between your mother and the earthen wall. You stare at the flame of the oil lamp. It is a tiny yellow tongue of fire. You watch it consume the oil, drop by drop. This becomes your clock.
Boredom sets in.
It is a heavy, suffocating boredom. You cannot move much. You cannot speak above a whisper. You cannot leave.
To occupy your mind, you look at the wall. Your father stands up and takes a piece of charcoal from a shelf. He walks to a smooth section of the clay wall near the sleeping platform.
Scratch. He draws a vertical line.
See these marks, he whispers to you.
You look. There are old marks there, faded scratches from years ago. Groups of 5 lines, 4 vertical, 1 diagonal.
11 days, your father says. That was the last time. 11 days we hit here. Someone marked each one. 11 days. You try to imagine it. 11 days of sitting in the dark. 11 days of eating dried meat and rationing water. 11 days of whispering.
I don't remember who marked them, he says. We were all just waiting, trying not to make a sound. The children eventually fall asleep. Fear is exhausting. It burns energy faster than hard labor. Even Oswin finally closes his eyes, curled up against your mother like a dormant animal.
But you are awake. You sit and you think.
You think about your house above. Is there anyone in it right now? Are they opening your wooden chest? Are they taking the wool blanket you left on the bed?
You think about the cooking pot your mother loved, the one they took last year. You wonder if the new pot is gone too. You realize that your life is divided into 2 parts, the things you can carry and the things you leave behind to be burned. In the corner, old Hans is sitting with his eyes closed. He is murmuring something. A prayer? A curse? No, he is counting his fish. He is mentally inventorying the dried fish he left hanging in his attic.
They'll take the livestock, someone whispers in the darkness. Better the cows than us.
Carl's got his family alive, your father whispers back. That's worth more than cows. This is the economics of survival. You trade property for life. You let them have the grain. You let them have the timber. You keep the blood. You keep the breath.
Sometime later, you don't know when because your internal clock has broken. The sounds from above stop. The muffled crashing ceases. The faint vibrations in the ceiling beams disappear. The silence of the earth returns. It is heavy and absolute. Your father and Eric exchange a look.
It is a look of men who have played this game before. "I'll go look," Eric says.
"Not alone," your father says.
Eric moves to his entrance passage. He is a big man, but he moves with the grace of a cat. He disappears up the tunnel.
He is gone for a long time. The room holds its breath. Every person is frozen, eyes fixed on the dark hole of the tunnel entrance.
When he comes back, his shoulders are lower. His face is relaxed.
"They're gone," he says, "headed south along the river road. I watched until I couldn't see them anymore."
A collective exhale moves through the room. It sounds like the wind. "The village?" your father asks.
"The storehouse is ash," Eric says. "2 houses on the north end are gone, but the church is standing."
Your father nods. We wait until dark, he says. Then we go up.
You have survived. You are just 3 feet below the surface, but you might as well be on the moon. You have ridden out the storm in a capsule of clay.
When darkness falls on the surface, the evacuation begins.
Your legs are numb from sitting. You have to massage the blood back into your calves before you can stand. You stumble on the uneven floor of the passage. You climb the steps. Your father pushes the wooden cover aside. The air hits you first.
It is shockingly cold. After the humid 50-degree warmth of the chamber, the night air feels like ice water, but it is fresh. It is clean.
You climb out. You stand up. You look at the sky. The stars are out, thousands of them, scattered across a purple-black sky like spilled salt. The moon is a thin sliver, offering just enough light to see shapes. You breathe deep, but then you smell it. It is the smell of wet charcoal, the smell of scorched timber. It is a heavy, dark scent that hangs low to the ground. You walk back toward the village. Your mother holds your hand. Your father carries Oswin, who is awake now and silent.
The path is familiar, but the landscape has changed.
The storehouse is gone. It was the largest building in the village, a symbol of your community's wealth and security. Now it is a heap of black timbers and gray ash. It is still smoldering, releasing thin ribbons of smoke that rise straight up in the still air. The heat radiating from the ruin is palpable from 20 feet away.
The grain is gone. The winter supplies are gone.
You pass the Gruber family's house. It is a skeleton. The roof has collapsed. The walls are blackened stumps.
But then you see your house. It is standing.
Your father walks toward it slowly. He pushes the door open. He disappears inside. You wait, holding your breath.
He comes back out.
"They took the grain barrel," he says, "and the dried meat, but the structure is sound. We can still live here." Your mother lets out a sound, half laugh, half sob. She hugs Oswin tight.
Around you, the other families are emerging. They appear like ghosts rising from the graveyard. They check their homes. They count their losses. Old Hans is walking in circles, cursing about his fish. "Gone," he mutters, "every single one." But as you stand there, shivering in the cold night, you realize something. 43 people went into the earth. 43 people came back. No one was killed. No one was taken. You look down at your feet. You look at the ground. Before today, the ground was just dirt. It was something you walked on. It was something you plowed. Now you see it differently. The earth is armor. It is a shield. It is a fortress that cannot be burned down. "That hole saved you," the narrator whispers. "It saved all of you." Your father catches your eye. He nods once. "This is your inheritance," the look says. "Not gold, not land, but this knowledge. The knowledge
of how to disappear.
Tomorrow, he says, we count what is left.
You go back into your house. It is freezing cold. The fire is dead. The wind whistles through the walls. But you are alive. You curl up in the straw, and for the first time in 24 hours, you close your eyes and truly sleep.
The sun rises gray and cold.
The village gathers in front of the church. Headman Otto stands on the steps. He looks 10 years older than he did yesterday.
The storehouse is gone, Otto says. His voice is thin. That was 3/4 of our winter grain. We need to take stock. We need to know exactly what we have to survive until spring.
The mood is grim. People are doing the math in their heads. 60 people, 4 months of winter left, 0 grain in the communal store.
Your father steps forward.
There is more food than you think, he says.
Heads turn.
Underground, he explains, the storage chambers. Some families have been keeping provisions down there for years.
A murmur runs through the crowd. Some people nod. They know the secret. Others look confused. Underground storage?
How much? Otto asks.
Between Eric and me, your father says, probably enough for both families for 3 months, plus root vegetables, dried meat, ale.
There is anger in the crowd. Why should your family have food when the Grubers have lost everything?
I'm not saying we keep it for ourselves, your father says, raising a hand. I'm saying we pull everything underground. We share it, but the underground stores need to be managed carefully.
Otto nods. Joey, you go back underground, but this time you go deeper. You descend into the storage chamber. This room is different from the living quarters. It is deeper, maybe 8 or 10 feet down. The air is crisper. Your father lights a torch. The light reveals the wealth of the earth. Barrels, dozens of wooden barrels, lined up like soldiers along the clay walls. Each one is sealed with a thick cap of tallow, animal fat, or clay to make it airtight. Wheat, your father says, tapping a barrel. Barley, oats, we rotate them. Oldest first. But the real miracle is in the corner. There is a large rectangular pit dug into the floor. It is filled with sand. Your father kneels. He digs his hand into the dry sand. He pulls out a carrot. It is bright orange. It is firm. It snaps when he breaks it. Sand, he explains. Let's look at the science of this. Root vegetables, carrots, turnips, parsnips, are living things even after you pull them from the ground. They respire. They give off moisture. If you pile them in a bin, the moisture gets trapped. Mold grows, rot spreads. One bad carrot kills the whole bunch. But sand acts as a regulator. It separates the vegetables physically, so rot cannot jump from one to another. It wicks away excess moisture, keeping the skin dry, but it holds enough humidity to keep the vegetable from shriveling. The sand keeps them from touching, your father says, so one rotten vegetable doesn't spread to the rest. Otto looks amazed. This carrot looks like it was harvested yesterday. In reality, it has been down here for 3 months. And honey, your father says, pointing to ceramic pots in the wall niches. The medieval version of sugar lasts forever. This is also true. Archaeologists have found honey in Egyptian tombs that is 3,000 years old and still edible. Honey is low in moisture and high in acidity. Bacteria simply cannot live in it. It is the perfect survival food. And then the ceiling. You look up. Hanging from the beams are legs of pork, cured with salt, strings of dried fish, sausages, dark and wrinkled. The smell is intense, salt, smoke, and meat. It is a savory, heavy scent. We smoke it above ground, then hang it here, your father explains. The cold, dry air preserves it,
and no flies. The flies don't like it this far underground.
Otto does the math. How many families have setups like this? He asks.
6 or 7, your father says. Between all of us, maybe enough to feed 30 people.
There are 60 of us, Otto says. The math is hard, but it is better than 0.
We forage, Eric adds. We gather nuts and roots in the forest. We combine the underground stores with what we can find.
Otto nods. We do both.
He looks at your father. Can you teach others to build these?
It takes time, your father says, but I can show them how to expand what they have. It's easier to make a hole bigger than to dig a new one.
You stand there in the flickering torchlight. You realize that your village is not just a collection of farmers. You are engineers. You are scientists of the soil. You have built a bank vault for calories, hidden beneath the frost.
And as the long winter stretches out before you, you know that this dark, cool room is the only reason you will see the spring.
The meeting with the village council ends. The men disperse to their tasks, but your father stays behind in the storage chamber. You stay with him.
You are standing in the deepest part of the network, surrounded by the quiet wealth of survival.
You look up at the ceiling. It is a landscape of its own.
Dozens of preserved items hang there, suspended in the cool, still air. They dangle from iron hooks driven deep into the wooden support beams. There are legs of pork, cured with salt until they are as hard as petrified wood. There are strings of dried fish, their scales catching the torchlight like dull silver coins. There are sausages, dark and wrinkled, looping over the timber like vines.
The smell is something else.
It is not a bad smell. It is not the smell of rot or decay. It is intense. It is dense. It is the smell of salt, smoke, and protein. It coats the back of your throat with a savory heaviness.
We smoke the meat above ground first, your father explains, noticing where your gaze has settled.
Let's pause to appreciate the biochemistry happening here.
Fresh meat is vulnerable. It is 75% water, and water is the playground of bacteria. To save the meat, you have to wage a war against moisture.
The process begins above ground, in the smokehouse. You rub the meat with salt, precious, expensive salt brought in from the mines far to the south. The salt draws the moisture out of the cells through osmosis. Then you hang it in the smokehouse for days.
The smoke does 2 things. First, it dries the outer layer, creating a pellicle, a tough skin that insects cannot penetrate. Second, the smoke contains chemical compounds, phenols and acids that act as antimicrobial agents. It basically sterilizes the surface.
Then we bring it down here, your father says. The cold, dry air keeps it from spoiling.
He points to a ham that has been hanging there since last autumn.
No flies either, he notes. The flies don't like it this far underground.
This is a critical detail. Above ground, in the summer, food storage is a constant battle against insects. Maggots can destroy a winter supply of meat in a week. But down here, 8 feet deep, the environment is too hostile for them. It is too cool. It is too dark. The earth acts as a natural sterile field.
He moves to a niche in the wall where smaller pots are sealed with wax.
Herbs, he says.
He cracks the seal on one. The scent of dried thyme and sage drifts out, mixing with the heavy smell of the meat.
Your wife can make anything taste decent if you've got the right herbs, he says with a faint smile.
This observation speaks to the quality of life they are trying to preserve. This isn't just about calories. It is about flavor. It is about maintaining a semblance of culture and comfort, even when the world above is burning.
You look at the honey pot again. Honey never goes bad? You ask.
Never, he says. Your father thinks it might actually be immortal.
He is right.
Honey is a supersaturated sugar solution. It has such low water content that bacteria simply cannot grow in it. They dehydrate and die instantly upon contact. A pot of honey is a biological dead zone for pathogens, but a battery of pure energy for humans.
You stand there for a moment, breathing in the scent of the smoke, the salt, and the herbs. This chamber is a battery. It is a savings account. It is the physical manifestation of foresight, suspended from the ceiling in the dark.
Your father moves to one of the walls where the texture of the clay is particularly smooth.
There are marks scratched into the surface here, lines and symbols that don't make immediate sense to you. They look like abstract art, or perhaps a primitive language you haven't learned.
This is how we keep track, he says, running his rough finger along the marks. Each line is a barrel. Each mark tells me what's inside and when it was stored. He points to a row of crude circles scratched into the dirt. These circles mean grain, he explains. Then he points to a series of intersecting lines. These crossed lines mean meat, he says.
He taps his temple. The numbers are months.
Your father cannot read in the traditional sense. He cannot write his name. If you gave him a piece of parchment and a quill, he wouldn't know which end to hold. But he is not uneducated. He is highly literate in the things that matter to his survival. You can read numbers, he says to you. It is a statement, not a question. I can count, Agnes. I'm not educated, but I'm not stupid. He hands you the piece of charcoal. It is burnt down to almost nothing, a small black nub that leaves dust on your fingertips. Teach me, you say.
He looks at you. There is a flicker of something in his eyes. Relief, perhaps, or pride. He realizes that you are old enough now. You are old enough to carry the knowledge.
All right, he says, we'll start with the basics. For the next hour, you learn the system. It is a tactile education. You are not learning from a book. You are learning from the wall itself. Circle means grain, you repeat, scratching a round shape into the dirt. A slash through the circle means the barrel is opened and being used, he corrects, guiding your hand. A cross means it's empty and needs to be refilled.
The system is elegant in its simplicity. It requires no ink, no paper, no light other than a torch. It is a database carved into the architecture of the room. If the wall is destroyed, the data is lost. But the wall is the room.
Crossed lines mean meat, he continues. Position on the wall tells you which hook it's hanging from. A dot next to the crossed lines means pork. 2 dots mean fish. 3 dots mean sausage. You practice the dots. Tap, tap, tap. The charcoal crumbles slightly against the hard-packed clay. The numbers are simpler, he says. 1 mark for each month since storage. When the marks reach 12, the food is probably no good anymore. What about the vegetables, you ask, pointing toward the sandpit in the corner. Those I don't track, he admits. Too many of them, and they move around too much. I just dig down and see what's there. If it's soft, throw it out. If it's firm, eat it. That's not very organized, you say. Organization has limits, Agnes, he replies. At some point, you have to trust your hands and your nose more than marks on a wall. You think about that advice. Trust your hands and your nose. It is good advice for vegetables, but you suspect it applies to more than that. It applies to the dampness of the walls, the smell of the air, the sound of the timber settling. The torch begins to sputter. The oil is running low. Your father takes the charcoal from you and places it back on the shelf. The lesson is over for today, but the marks remain on the wall, a silent inventory of your family's life, written in dust and clay. 3 days after the raid, the immediate crisis has passed. The raiders are gone, the adrenaline has faded. Now the work of rebuilding begins.
Your father hands you a spade. It is not like the tools you have seen the wealthy farmers use in the valley. Those tools have smooth, new wooden handles and iron blades that gleam in the light. This tool is ancient. It is older than you are. It is possibly older than your father. You hold it in your hands. The handle is rough, yet worn down by countless hands over countless years until the wood has taken on a dark, oily sheen. It feels warm to the touch, as if the sweat of your ancestors has permeated the grain. It is polished not by sandpaper, but by friction and skin. The iron blade is pitted and scratched. It has been sharpened so many times that it is noticeably thinner on one side than the other. It has a jagged, asymmetrical look, like a tooth that has been worn down by grinding.
This was your grandfather's, your father says. He dug half the chambers with this.
The other half he dug with a pick that broke 20 winters ago, he adds. You test the weight of it. It is heavier than you expected. The balance feels wrong at first, top-heavy, like someone attached a rock to the end of a stick. Hold it lower, your father corrects. He adjusts your grip. He shows you how to position your hands, one near the top, one halfway down the shaft. Suddenly, the weight shifts. The tool stops fighting you and becomes an extension of your arm. Every tool in this village has a story, he says. This spade has dug more holes than you can count. Graves, cellars, irrigation channels. But he explains that underground work is what it was specifically made for. Look at the blade, he says. It's narrower than a farming spade. You look. He is right. The metal is shaped like a narrow teardrop or a spear point. That's intentional, he says. In a tight passage, you need to be able to swing without hitting the walls. He takes the spade back for a moment to demonstrate. He stands in the open air, but he moves as if he is confined. He uses short, controlled strokes, not the wide, sweeping arcs you would use to plow a field. Thrust, twist, lift. It is a compact, efficient motion. It conserves energy. It respects the limits of the space. Today, you learn to dig, he says, handing it back to you. Not just any digging, underground digging. It's different. You stand there, holding the grandfather's spade. You feel a strange connection to the man you never met. You are holding the same wood he held. You are about to engage in the same motion he performed for 40 years. The spade is not just a tool. It is a key, and you are about to use it to unlock the earth. You are standing at the edge of the village, near the hillside where your family's earth house is hidden. But you are not going down into your own shelter today. You are standing in front of a patch of ground that looks exactly like every other patch of ground. It is a mix of dead grass, dirt, and scattered rocks. The Gruber family is there. Klaus Gruber, a thin man with nervous hands, and his wife Hilda, who looks exhausted. They lost their house in the fire. They also lost their underground chamber. The roof collapsed under the heat and weight of the debris. They need a new one, and Headman Otto has asked your father to teach them how to build it. Show me where you want it, your father says to Klaus. Klaus leads him to a spot on the hillside, not far from where your own entrance is hidden. Here, Klaus says, this is where ours was before. We know the area. Your father crouches down. He examines the ground. He picks up a handful of dirt, letting it sift through his fingers. He frowns. Not here, he says. He stands and walks about 20 feet to the left. He points to a spot that looks identical. There, he says, that's where you build. Klaus looks confused. You are confused too. To the untrained eye, there is no difference. Grass is grass. Dirt is dirt. What's the difference? Klaus asks. Your father walks back to the spot Klaus originally chose. He lifts his heavy boot and stomps hard on the ground.
Thump.
The sound is hollow. It resonates slightly, almost like hitting a drum.
Hear that? Your father asks. There's a natural cavity under here, a gap in the rock, probably from water running through years ago.
He explains the geology. If you build on top of a cavity, your walls have nothing solid to rest against. They will shift, they will crack. Eventually, they will fall in.
He walks back to the spot he recommended. He stomps again.
Thud. This sound is different. It is dead. It is solid. It is the sound of density. It sounds like hitting a bag of sand.
Packed earth all the way down, he says. Here, you've got clay mixed with stone. It'll hold. You filed this information away. Listen to the ground. The ground will tell you if it is safe, if you know how to ask the question. We start by clearing the surface, your father says. He turns to you. Agnes, show them. You blink. You didn't realize you would be the one demonstrating, but you step forward. You grip the grandfather's spade. You remember what you have seen your father do 100 times. Mark out your boundaries first, you say, your voice surprisingly steady. Square or rectangle, never round. Round looks easier, you explain, reciting the lesson, but the walls are harder to brace. Square walls can lean against wooden beams. Round walls need more support. Your father nods. There is that look again. Pride. You cut a rectangle into the earth, about 6 feet by 8 feet. The spade slices through the roots of the grass with a satisfying tearing sound. The earth is ready. The digging begins. Now you dig. For hours, there is only the rhythm of the work. Drive, lift, toss. The first foot is the hardest. This is the surface layer, the topsoil. It is a chaotic mess of biological history. It is full of roots from the grass and trees. It is full of rocks that have floated to the surface over winters of frost heaving. It is full of old bones from animals that died here years ago. Every time you thrust the spade into the ground, you hit something that stops you cold. A stone the size of a fist. A thick root that vibrates up the handle and jars your wrists. You spend as much time prying and clearing debris as you do actually moving earth. It is frustrating. It feels like the earth is fighting back.
But once you get past that first 12 inches, the world changes.
The soil becomes uniform. The chaos of the surface gives way to the order of the deep. It is clay, mostly, packed tight by the weight of centuries of rain and snow pressing down on it. It cuts cleanly. It does not crumble. It holds its shape like bread dough, dense, heavy, and cool. This is what you want, your father says, pausing to hold up a clod of the clay. See how it sticks together? He squeezes it. It retains the impression of his fingers.
When we pack this into walls, it'll stay put, he explains. Sandy soil falls apart. Pure mud turns to slop when it rains. But clay mixed with a little sand and a little rock, that's your building material.
The sun moves across the sky. Your arms start to burn, then your shoulders, then your back.
Muscles you didn't know you had are screaming at you to stop. The repetitive motion, bending, lifting, twisting, becomes a trance. You stop thinking. You just become a machine for moving dirt. But you don't stop, because everyone else is digging. The Grubers are digging. Your father is digging. You are not going to be the first one to quit. By midday, the hole is 3 feet deep. You are standing waist deep in the earth. The air down here is already cooler than the air above. You are entering the zone of the earth's temperature. Your father calls for a rest. You collapse against a tree, breathing hard. You look at the hole. It seems impossibly small for the amount of effort it took. How deep do we go, you ask? For storage, 6 feet is enough, he says. For living quarters, 8 is better. Deeper means more stable temperature. But it also means more digging and more risk of hitting water, he warns.
Water? You ask.
He points to a cluster of willow trees about 30 yards away.
See those willows? He asks. They're greener than everything else. Their roots go deep. They're drinking from groundwater that's close to the surface. Dig there, and you'll hit water within 4 feet.
He points to where you are standing. Dig here, where the grass is shorter and browner, and the water is much deeper. Maybe 12 feet.
You look around with new eyes. The landscape is not just scenery, it is a map. The trees are telling you where the water is. The grass is telling you how deep the soil is. Everything is information.
You drink from the water skin. It tastes of leather, but it is the best thing you have ever tasted. You look at your hands. They are red and raw, even through the calluses. You are not just observing the earth anymore. You are fighting it, wrestling it, shaping it.
And slowly, shovel by shovel, the earth is yielding.
The afternoon is spent learning about walls and supports.
You are standing in the hole, which is now 4 feet deep. The walls are raw earth. They are strong, but they are liable to crumble if they dry out too much. They need to be reinforced.
Your father shows you how to mix the cob, the daub that will coat the interior.
It is a mixture of the clay you just dug up, combined with fresh straw.
The straw acts like bones inside the clay, he explains, kneading a lump of the mixture between his palms. Without it, the walls would crack every time the temperature changed. With it, they flex just enough to survive. Some builders use animal hair, he notes, stronger bond. But unless you're slaughtering a whole herd, you won't have enough.
He hands you a lump. Work it, he says.
The clay is cold against your skin. It is gritty with sand and bits of stone. The straw pokes at your fingers. You knead it, folding it over and over, distributing the straw evenly.
The trick is getting it wet enough to stick, but dry enough to hold its shape, your father says. Too wet and it sags, too dry and it crumbles.
He watches your hands. You'll learn the feel of it. Your hands will know before your head does.
Then there is the matter of the wood.
Every underground chamber needs support beams to hold up the ceiling. Good timber is precious. Straight, long planks are expensive and usually reserved for the church or the Lord's manor.
But your father walks over to a pile of debris salvaged from the Gruber's burned house. He pulls out a piece of wood that looks like garbage.
It is a crooked beam. It is twisted, curving significantly to the left. It is the kind of thing a carpenter building a house above ground would throw away immediately.
Above ground, this is garbage, your father says, echoing your thoughts. But down here, perfect.
He jumps down into the hole and positions the crooked beam in the corner. He wedges the base against the floor and the top against the ceiling. The curve of the wood fits naturally into the corner.
Straight beams push in one direction, he explains. Curved beams spread the force out. He presses his weight against it. It doesn't budge.
Underground, where the earth is pressing from all sides, curved is better than straight every time.
You look at the crooked beam. It looks organic. It looks like a tree root that has decided to become a wall. You realize that your grandfather wasn't just building with scraps because he was poor. He was building with scraps because they were the right tool for the job. He saw the strength in the imperfect things. By evening, the main chamber is roughed out. The crooked beams are in place. The walls are starting to take shape, coated in the clay straw mixture that you helped mix. It looks like a wound in the hillside right now, exposed and vulnerable. But you can see the skeleton of the room. You can see the shelter it will become. You climb out of the hole as the sun sets. You are covered in clay dust. You smell like wet earth. But you feel strong. You have built something real today, and tomorrow you will build more.
The blizzard comes in late January. In the medieval calendar, this is the dead time. The harvest is long gone. The spring is a distant dream. It is the time when the food stores are lowest and the nights are longest.
You have seen storms before. Everyone in Bavaria has. You know the kind of storms that pile snow against the doors so high you have to dig your way out in the morning with a wooden shovel. You know the storms that freeze the water in the bucket by the hearth, even with the fire burning, requiring you to break the ice with a ladle to get a drink.
But this one is different.
This storm does not just fall, it assaults. It begins with a drop in pressure that makes your ears pop. Then the sky turns a bruised greenish gray.
And then the wind.
It screams. It howls through the village for 3 days straight. It is a relentless, high-pitched wail that sounds like the sky itself is tearing open. It finds every gap in the thatch, every crack in the daub, every loose board in the door.
By the second day, the drifts are higher than your house. The windows are buried. The light inside is dim and gray, filtered through 3 feet of packed snow. The world outside has disappeared. There is no horizon. There is no forest. There is only the white.
By the third day, the cold winds. The temperature drops so low that the moisture in the air inside your house turns to ice instantly. You wake up with frost on your eyelashes. The water bucket is frozen solid, a block of ice in a wooden container. The fire in the hearth is struggling, the smoke refusing to rise against the heavy air pressure, filling the room with a choking haze. Your father looks at the fire. He looks at the frozen bucket. He looks at you.
Underground, he says.
Nobody argues. There is no discussion. The house, your shelter above ground, has failed. The surface world has become uninhabitable.
The preparation is automatic now. You have practiced this. You pack only what is essential.
You take extra blankets, heavy wool that smells of lanolin. You take the last of the dried meat from the rafters. You take the ceramic pot of honey that your mother guards like it is made of gold. Honey is energy. In a freeze, energy is life.
Oswin clutches his wooden horse, the one your father carved for him. It is his talisman.
Your mother reaches into her box and pulls out her silver cross. She wraps it tight in a piece of linen and tucks it inside her dress against her heart. It is the only valuable thing she owns.
You wrap your face in a scarf. You put on your mittens. You open the door.
The journey to the hidden entrance is a nightmare of white.
It is only a short walk, maybe 50 yards to the hillside, but it takes an eternity. The snow is up to your waist. It is not soft powder. It is wind-packed and heavy. You have to lift your legs high, dragging them through the resistance, fighting for every step.
The wind cuts through your clothes like they are made of lace. It burns your skin. It steals the heat from your core. You cannot see more than a few feet in front of you. The world has dissolved into a swirling vortex of ice crystals and gray light. You reach the pile of stones. Your father falls to his knees. He digs frantically with his gloved hands to find the wooden cover. His fingers are clumsy with cold. He brushes away the drift. He finds the edge. He heaves it open.
You tumble down the steps, practically falling into the darkness.
And then the miracle happens again. The wind vanishes. The howling stops instantly, replaced by the muffled silence of the earth. The biting cold softens into that steady, embraceable 50 degrees. You stand there in the passage, shaking the snow from your cloak. You listen to your own breathing slow down. In, out. In, out. You are safe.
The blizzard is raging just 10 feet above your head, capable of killing a man in an hour, but it cannot touch you here. You enter the main chamber. The lamp is already lit.
You are not the first ones down.
Eric's family is already here. The Vogels are here. Old Gerda is sitting on a bench. She probably came down at the first sign of snow. She is rubbing her hands together, warming them over a small brazier.
More people filter in over the next hour. The Mullers appear, shaking snow from their beards. Ulrich the tanner and his daughter Greta arrive smelling of cold leather. The widow Brunhild stumbles in with her 4 children, counting them one by one as they cross the threshold.
And then Henrik the blacksmith arrives.
He is practically carrying his wife, Martra, down the steep steps. Martra looks terrible. Her face is gray, slick with sweat despite the freezing cold journey. She is gripping Henrik's arm so hard her knuckles are white. She is making small sounds with each step, little sharp intakes of breath that she is trying to hide.
Her belly is huge now, much bigger than it was during the raid a month ago.
Your mother moves forward instantly. She drops her bundle of blankets. She takes Martra's other arm.
How long? Your mother asks.
Since this morning, Henrik says. His voice is shaking. She didn't want to say anything. Thought it would pass.
Your mother and Gerda exchange a look. It is a look that women have exchanged for thousands of years. It is a look of knowing.
It's not going to pass, Gerda says flatly. This baby is coming whether the storm stops or not.
Henrik goes pale. Not just worried pale, but translucent. He is a blacksmith. He bends iron. He works with fire and hammers and dangerous things every day. But watching his wife prepare to give birth in a hole in the ground during a blizzard is apparently where his courage runs out.
Go check on the drainage channels, your mother tells him. Make sure they're clear. We might be down here for days.
It is busy work. Everyone knows it is busy work. It is a task invented to get him out of the room so the women can work. But Henrik grabs onto the task like a drowning man grabbing a rope, and he disappears down the passage toward the storage chamber.
Agnes, your mother says, come here.
You step forward. You have never seen a baby born before. You know the basics. You are a village girl, after all. You have seen goats and cows give birth plenty of times. But this feels different. The stakes feel higher.
Bring clean cloth, your mother commands. Bring water from the storage barrel. Hold this lamp. The chamber transforms. The sleeping platform becomes a birthing bed. The men retreat to the connected chambers, taking the children with them to keep them distracted. The space contracts. The women form a circle around Martra, a wall of wool skirts and quiet voices, a shield against the dark. The next few hours blur together.
Time in the Earth House usually drags, but now it seems to compress. The storm above is forgotten. The only storm that matters is happening right here on the straw mattress.
Martyr labors. It is hard work. It is the oldest work.
The chamber is dim, lit only by 3 oil lamps placed in the niches. The light casts long, dancing shadows against the curved clay walls. It feels like a cave. It feels like something from 10,000 years ago, when humans first huddled in the earth to survive the ice.
You become your mother's extra pair of hands. Fetch water, she says. You run to the barrel. You dip the ladle. You bring it back. Hold this, she says, handing you a clean cloth. Press here, she commands. Don't let go until I tell you. You watch the women work. Your mother, Gerda, the widow Brunhild. They move with a synchronized efficiency. They speak in shorthand. They know exactly what to do, passed down from mother to daughter, just like the knowledge of how to dig the tunnels. Breathe, Gerda whispers to Martyr.
Ride it like a wave.
From the other chambers, faintly, you can hear voices. Your father is telling stories to the children. His voice is a low rumble, drifting through the tunnels. He is talking about knights and dragons, trying to cover the sounds of the labor.
And then the knight raised his shield, your father's voice echoes, and the dragon breathed fire.
It is a strange juxtaposition. In one room, a fantasy of fire and monsters to keep the children calm. In this room, the very real, very raw struggle of life entering the world.
Martyr screams once, near the end. It is not a scream of fear. It is a raw, animal sound of effort. It echoes off the clay walls. It travels through the packed earth. In the other chambers, the storytelling stops. The men go silent. The children look up from their games. The whole network holds its breath.
And then there is a shift.
A wet, sliding noise. A sudden release of tension in the room. And then a new sound. Crying. Thin. High. Indignant. Alive. A girl, your mother says. Her voice cracks on the word. She is holding something small and red and squirming. Something that is kicking its tiny legs against the cool air like it is trying to swim. Healthy lungs, Gerda notes with a nod, wiping her hands on a rag. Good color, 10 fingers, 10 toes. Your mother wraps the baby in a piece of soft flannel she brought from the house. She hands the bundle to Martra. Martra's hands are trembling from exhaustion, but she takes the child. Her face, which was twisted in pain moments ago, smooths out. She looks at the baby with a kind of bewildered wonder.
Henrik appears in the entrance passage.
He looks terrified. He is covered in dirt from checking the drainage channels. He looks like he is afraid to enter the room, afraid of what he might find.
A daughter, Martra whispers. Look, Henrik, a daughter.
The big blacksmith drops to his knees beside the sleeping platform. He starts to cry. He buries his face in the straw mattress, weeping like a child. He is a man who can lift an anvil, but he is undone by this tiny pink thing.
What will you name her? Gerda asks.
Martra looks around the chamber.
She looks at the clay walls that protected her. She looks at the curved wooden beams that held up the roof. She looks at the lamp flame flickering in the niche. She looks at the faces of the women who helped her. She is underground. The blizzard is howling miles above them in a different world. But down here, she is safe.
Erdine, she says softly.
The name hangs in the air. Erdim. It is related to the word Erde. It means earth or from the earth. It is not a common name. It is not a saint's name. But here, in this moment, it is the only name that makes sense.
Erdene, Gerda repeats, born in a hole in the ground, protected by the clay.
You look at the baby. She is sleeping now, exhausted by her arrival. She doesn't know about the snow. She doesn't know about the raiders. She only knows the warmth of her mother and the smell of the earth. She is the first child of the tunnels, a sign that life doesn't just survive down here, it begins here. The storm continues outside, but inside, the mood has changed. The fear is gone. It has been replaced by a quiet reverence.
A new life has started in the dark, and the earth has welcomed her.
The storm continues for 2 more days. Life underground settles into a rhythm. It is the kind of routine that develops when humans are forced into close quarters with no clear end in sight. The adrenaline of the birth has faded, replaced by the mundane reality of waiting. Mornings start with a count. Headman Otto walks through the connected chambers, counting heads, checking that everyone is still breathing, still sane.
Then breakfast. Porridge, mostly. Smaller portions than you would like because supplies are running low and nobody knows when the snow will stop.
After breakfast, the challenge begins. What to do with the children? There are a dozen children down here, ranging from toddlers to teenagers. They are bored, and a bored child in a confined space is dangerous. They get restless, they start to fight, they start to ask questions that have no answers.
So the adults take turns entertainment.
Your father tries first. He gathers the children in the passage between your chamber and Eric's. He decides to tell a story. And then the knight raised his sword, your father says, pitching his voice low for dramatic effect. And the dragon opened its mouth, and fire came pouring out like a river of death.
The children lean in.
What happened next? Oswin demands.
The knight ducked, your father says, just in time. The fire went right over his head, so close it singed the feathers on his helmet.
There is a pause. One of the Brunhill children raises a hand.
Knights don't have feathers on their helmets, the boy objects. They have plumes, horsehair.
Your father blinks. He is a digger, not a historian. This one did, he says. He was a special knight.
The children accept this logic, but you can see they are skeptical. Your father is a good provider, but he is a mediocre storyteller.
Old Hans takes over next.
Hans is usually a grumpy man. He lives alone at the edge of the village and smells like the goats he keeps. He spent the entire first day complaining about his stolen fish. But it turns out, old Hans is surprisingly good with children.
He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a handful of knuckle bones.
These are the astragalus bones, the ankle bones of sheep. They are small, cuboid, and polished smooth by years of handling. They are the medieval equivalent of dice.
He teaches them the game. You toss them in the air, you catch them on the back of your hand. You snatch them up from the floor before the others land. It is a game of dexterity and speed.
Click, clack, click.
The sound of the bones hitting the clay floor becomes the soundtrack of the afternoon.
Then he starts the memory game. This is how we keep our minds sharp, Hans says. Books rot, paper burns, but what you keep in your head, nobody can steal that.
He looks at the circle of children. He starts a list.
Red fox, Hans says.
Red fox, the children repeat in unison.
Red fox, fat pig, Hans adds.
Red fox, fat pig, they chant back.
Red fox, fat pig, old boot.
The list grows. It has a rhythm to it, a cadence that is almost hypnotic. It is a training exercise for the brain. In a world without written records, memory is everything. If you want to remember your family history, your property lines, the best time to plant wheat, you have to memorize it.
Red fox, fat pig, old boot, broken wheel, Hans says.
Red fox, fat pig, old boot, broken wheel, the chorus responds.
Red fox, fat pig, old boot, broken wheel, frozen puddle.
Red fox, fat pig, old boot, broken wheel, frozen puddle, angry goat.
The sequence gets longer and longer. It becomes a test of concentration. It becomes a meditation.
Red fox, fat pig, old boot, broken wheel, frozen puddle, angry goat, silver coin.
Red fox, fat pig, old boot, broken wheel, frozen puddle, angry goat, silver coin, wet dog. Red fox, fat pig, old boot, broken wheel, frozen puddle, angry goat, silver coin, wet dog,
green apple.
One by one, the children stumble. They forget the broken wheel, or they mix up the angry goat with the fat pig. When they miss a word, they are out.
Finally, it is just Greta left. Greta is the tanner's daughter. She is your age, quiet, smelling faintly of leather and lye. She sits with her eyes closed, rocking slightly back and forth.
Red fox, fat pig, old boot, broken wheel, frozen puddle, angry goat, silver coin, wet dog, green apple, sharp stone, she recites perfectly.
Hans nods. She has a mind like a trap, he whispers to the adults. She's a keeper.
You watch Greta. You realize that this isn't just a game. This is how the village survives. Some people dig the tunnels, some people cure the meat, and some people, like Greta, keep the memories. They are the living hard drives of the community.
The chanting of the list continues softly in the background. It becomes a kind of lullaby.
Red fox, fat pig, old boot.
The words float through the warm, dim air of the chamber. The babies fall asleep to the sound. Even the adults find their eyelids growing heavy.
It is a sound of order, a sound of continuity. As long as someone remembers the list, the world makes sense.
And outside, the blizzard rages on, burying the village deeper and deeper. But down here, the list goes on. The memory survives.
Spring comes slowly, the way it always does in the north. It does not arrive in a single day. It arrives in moments.
One day, you notice the icicles on the eaves are dripping instead of growing. Plink, plink, plink. The sound is rhythmic, like a metronome counting down the end of winter.
The next day, the light changes. The sun is higher in the sky. It has lost that weak, watery quality of January and gained a pale golden strength. Patches of the world begin to emerge. Dark brown mud appears where the snow has melted. It looks like a bruise on the landscape. The air smells different. It no longer smells of iron and ice. It smells of wet wood, rotting leaves, and awakening soil. But underground, spring means something else entirely.
It means water.
Water, Girder tells you on the first warm day of March, is the enemy now. All that snow has to go somewhere, and somewhere is down.
She is right. You notice it on your morning walk through the chambers. The environment has changed. The crisp, dry air of winter is gone. The air is now heavy. It is humid.
The walls, which stayed dry and dusty all winter, are starting to sweat.
It begins as a sheen on the clay surface. It looks like the walls are breathing. Then little beads of moisture form, gathering gravity and mass until they turn into drops that run down the walls like tears.
This is a critical moment for the earth house. The frost line is thawing. The ground, which has been locked tight by ice for months, is relaxing. The soil is expanding. The pores in the dirt are opening up, and they are filling with meltwater. Your father hands you a scraping tool. It is a simple piece of wood with a flat edge.
Check the channels, he says.
You spend the next week doing nothing but water management. It is repetitive, meditative work. It is the work of a caretaker.
You crawl through the low passages. You check the drainage channels, the shallow grooves your father dug along the edges of the floor years ago. Back then, the channels seemed excessive. Why dig a ditch in a dry room? Now you understand.
The water trickles down the walls and collects in these grooves. It flows silently, a tiny subterranean river, moving toward the collection pits at the lowest point of the excavation. You clear debris from the channels, bits of straw, pebbles, dust bunnies that have accumulated over the winter. Every blockage is a potential disaster. If the water stops flowing, it pools. If it pools, it soaks into the sleeping platform. It rots the grain.
In one of the ventilation shafts, a narrow tube that angles up to the surface, you find a blockage.
You reach up with a stick. You gently dislodge it.
It is a bird's nest. A wren had built it there, looking for warmth during the deep freeze. It falls into your hands. It is a marvel of construction, woven grass and twigs lined with soft down. But inside, you find 3 tiny skeletons, chicks that never made it.
You hold the nest for a moment. You feel the fragility of it. You say a small prayer because it seems like the right thing to do. Then you clear the rest of the debris.
That is life down here. Things die in the dark. You deal with them. You keep the air flowing. You keep the water moving.
The sound of the water becomes the soundtrack of March. It is a gentle trickling sound, echoing softly in the chambers. It sounds like the earth is cleaning itself, washing away the fear of the raid, washing away the smoke, preparing for the new year.
2 weeks later, when the mud has dried and the danger of flooding has passed, your father calls for you.
Put on your boots, he says. We are going for a walk. But he doesn't head for the stairs. He heads for the back of the storage chamber.
He pushes aside a stack of empty crates. He reveals a hole in the wall that you have never entered. You know our chambers, he says. You know Eric's. But there is more, a lot more. And if something happens to me, you need to know the whole network.
The whole network. The words send a little thrill through you. You knew there were tunnels connecting neighbors, but you didn't realize the scale of it. 7 families connected directly, he says. 3 more that are close enough to reach through exits on the other side of the hill. That's about 50 people who can move underground without ever coming to the surface.
Go, he says.
You enter the hole. It is narrow, uncomfortably narrow. It is a slip passage. It is designed to be barely wide enough for a human shoulder. You have to turn sideways. You have to drag your feet. The clay walls press against your chest and your back. It's tight on purpose, your father's voice echoes from behind you. One man with a knife can hold this tunnel against an army. No one can swing a sword in here. No one can wear armor in here.
You squeeze through. It feels like being birthed by the earth all over again.
Then the pressure releases. You stumble out into a new room.
This is the Muller family shelter.
It feels different from yours. The air smells the same, earth and lamp oil, but the personality is different.
Your family's walls are plain and smooth, but here, the walls are covered in art.
Carved directly into the clay are figures: a deer with branching antlers, a bird in flight, a charging boar with tusks. The work is rough, but full of life.
Old Franz carved these, your father whispers, running his hand over the flank of the clay deer. He spent his winters doing this, said it kept him sane, said if he couldn't see the animals outside, he would make them inside.
You move on. The network is a maze of idiosyncrasies.
You visit the Vogel family's chamber. The ceiling here is higher, maybe 7 feet. You can stretch your arms up without touching the beams.
Old Vogel was a tall man, your father explains, 6'4". He got tired of ducking. Dug an extra 2 feet of depth just so he could stand up straight.
You visit the tanner's chamber.
It smells faintly of chemicals and lye. Ulrich the tanner keeps his curing solutions down here because the temperature is consistent. Leather cures better in the cold. Half his business happens underground, and the nobles who buy his boots have no idea they were made in a hole in the ground.
Finally, you reach Girder's complex.
It is the cathedral of the network.
3 connected rooms flow into each other through wide archways, reinforced with stone, not just wood. Her husband spent 40 years building it. It feels less like a cellar and more like a subterranean palace. Gerda is there, waiting for you. She looks different underground, younger, more commanding. This is her kingdom.
Wolf, she nods to your father. Then she looks at you. And little Agnes, learning the ways? We need more young ones who understand, she says. Too many people think they can just dig a hole and call it safe. It takes knowledge. She leads you to a blank wall in her deepest chamber. It looks solid. It sounds solid when you tap it. But she presses a specific spot near the floor, and a section of the wall swings inward on a hidden wooden pivot.
A false wall, she says. Behind it is a tiny room, barely big enough for 4 people to crouch. It is a panic room inside a panic room.
If they ever find the tunnels, Gerda says, this is where you go. Nobody knows about these except the families who built them, not even the village council.
You stare into the hidden room. There are supplies in there. A water skin, a lamp, dried meat. It is a capsule of survival.
My husband built this 50 years ago, she says. We hid in here for 3 days once, while strangers walked through our main chamber looking for treasure that wasn't there.
She closes the wall. It clicks back into place, invisible again.
Every family should have a hidden room, she says. Your father is working on one. When he finishes, you must never tell a soul where it is. You nod. You realize that the village above is just a facade. The real village, the safe village, is down here, woven together by secrets, slip passages, and shared trust. Your father leaves you with Gerda for the afternoon. She takes this opportunity to educate you in ways your father cannot.
Men dig, she says, leading you back to the main chamber. That's what they are good at. Moving earth, breaking rock, building walls. But women, we maintain.
She stops at a wall and presses her palm against it. Feel this, she commands. You put your hand next to hers. The clay is cool. Do you feel the texture? She asks. Do you feel the dampness? Slightly clammy. You concentrate. You close your eyes to focus on your fingertips. Yes, it feels different from the dry sections. It feels softer. That is moisture seeping through, she says. Not enough to worry about today, but if nobody deals with it, in 6 months, this wall is mush. In a year, it collapses. She pulls a small pouch from her belt. Inside is a gray paste. It smells of fat and ash. You smear this on the wet spots, she demonstrates, rubbing the paste into the clay in circular motions. It seals the pores, stops the water from getting worse. She explains the recipe. It is a mixture of rendered animal fat, wood ash, and fine clay dust. It acts as a waterproof sealant. It is primitive chemistry. She hands you the jar. Take this, she says. Start maintaining your family's chambers. Your father digs, your mother cooks, but someone needs to walk the walls. You are the walker of the walls now, Agnes. For the next few weeks, this becomes your ritual. Every day, after your chores above ground are done, you descend. You take the pot of paste, you light a small lamp, and you walk the perimeter. It becomes a form of meditation. You move slowly. You run your hands over every inch of the clay. You learn the topography of your home. You know where the clay is lumpy. You know where it is smooth. You know where the roots of the oak tree above are pushing against the ceiling. You check the support beams. You look for cracks that run across the grain, a sign of structural failure. You check the seals on the barrels. One day, in the deep storage room, you find something. In the corner, near the ceiling, there is a hairline crack. You almost miss it. You would have missed it 6 months ago,
But now your eyes are trained. Your fingers are sensitive.
You press your palm against it. Cold. Damp. A draft is coming through.
You don't run to tell your father. You don't panic.
Instead, you go to your shelf. You mix the paste Gerda taught you. You add a little extra clay to make it thicker.
You stand on a crate. You carefully fill the crack. You press the paste deep into the fissure. You smooth it over with your thumb until it vanishes. You seal the wound in the earth.
Later, you tell Gerda what you did.
You found it on your own? She asks.
Yes.
She smiles. It is a rare, genuine smile that crinkles the corners of her eyes.
Good girl, she says. Good keeper.
This won't last forever, she warns, looking at the ceiling. The earth is always moving. In 10 years, maybe 20, that whole corner will need to be rebuilt. That is how underground works. Constant maintenance, constant attention.
It is about caring for something beyond yourself, she adds. You are maintaining this room for people who aren't born yet, for the children who will need these chambers 100 years from now.
You look at your hands. They are stained gray from the paste. They look like working hands. They look like her hands. You feel a sense of quiet pride. You are part of the line of defense.
The seasons turn. The mud of spring hardens into the cracked earth of summer. Summer arrives like a surprise party nobody asked for. One week there is a chill in the air. The next, the sun is blazing and the fields are baking in the heat. People start complaining about the humidity just as loudly as they complained about the cold. The flies return. The smell of the livestock becomes pungent in the heat.
But the underground chambers transform again.
In winter, they were a shelter from the freezing cold. Now they are a sanctuary from the sweltering heat.
That steady 50 degrees, which felt warm in January, feels blessedly cool in July.
Our grandparents knew this too, your father says, lying on the sleeping platform in the middle of the day. The earth doesn't just keep you warm, it keeps you cool. Same principle, different direction.
The tunnels become the social center of the village.
The women gather there in the afternoons. It is too hot to work the looms in the houses above. The sweat makes the wool sticky, and the heat makes you dizzy. So they bring their spindles and their mending down into the earth. They sit on the carved clay benches. They light a single lamp. They talk, they gossip. It is a sewing circle held in a root cellar. The acoustics of the room make their voices soft and resonant. The heat of the day is forgotten. Down here, it is always a cool, crisp autumn evening. The food storage strategy changes too. It's like having a room that is always November, your mother says happily.
She keeps an entire section of the storage chamber for summer provisions.
Milk, which would spoil in hours above ground in this heat, can be kept down here for days without souring. Butter holds its shape in the ceramic pots instead of melting into a greasy puddle. Cheese, wrapped in cloth, ages slowly and perfectly in the dark. You sit with the women sometimes. You watch Martra nursing little Erdine. The baby is thriving. She has grown so much since the blizzard. Her legs are chubby and strong. She rarely cries. She was born in the earth, Gerda says, bouncing the baby on her knee. That makes her special. Means the earth will always protect her.
You aren't sure if that is scientifically true, but as you sit there, enjoying the cool air while the cicadas buzz furiously in the heat above, it feels true. The earth is moderating your life. It smooths out the extremes. It takes the sharp edges off the winter and the burning sting out of the summer. It provides a middle path, a quiet, gray, steady path where life can continue.
You realize that the boring history of this place is actually its greatest strength. It is boring because it is stable.
It is boring because it is safe. And in a world of fires, plagues, and blizzards, boring is the most precious thing you can ask for.
By late October, the air changes again. The leaves turn gold. The first frost returns to coat the grass in silver. The cycle is beginning again.
You are 13 now. You feel different, heavier, more real. One morning, Gerda calls you to her house above ground. She is sitting by her fire, a blanket wrapped tight around her shoulders. She looks frail today. The powerful matriarch of the tunnels is fading as the winter approaches. Her hands shake slightly as she pours tea.
Come inside, she says. I have something to show you.
She leads you to her work table. There is a piece of stretched sheepskin laid out. It is old parchment, yellowed and stiff.
On it, drawn in charcoal, is a map.
This is the network, she says. Every chamber, every passage, every connection.
You lean closer. It is not a beautiful drawing. The lines are shaky. The proportions are wrong. But the logic is there. You see your family's chamber. You see the tunnel to Eric's. You see the schluff to the Mullers. You see the secret panic rooms marked with small stars. You see the ventilation shafts marked with circles.
It looks like a spider web spread out beneath the village. It looks like the veins of a living creature.
I've been working on this since summer, Gerda says, making sure I didn't forget anything.
Why, you ask? She looks at you with those old, watery eyes.
Because I won't be here forever, she says simply, and someone needs to know where everything is, really know, not just from walking it, but from seeing it all at once.
She pushes the hide toward you.
I want you to have this, she says. When I am gone, keep it safe. Keep it secret. Don't show it to anyone unless they have earned the right.
You take the map. The hide is soft and warm from the fire. You roll it up carefully. It feels heavy, though it weighs only a few ounces. It is the weight of responsibility.
Thank you, you whisper.
Don't thank me, she snaps gently. Learn it. Burn it into your memory so completely that you could draw it yourself with your eyes closed. If the map is lost, the map must be in your head.
I will. She reaches out and touches your face. Her fingers are dry and papery.
You are a good girl, Agnes, she says. Better than I was at your age. Now go. I'm tired. And you've got walls to check. You leave her house with a map tucked inside your dress, against your skin. You walk out into the crisp autumn air. You are not just a digger anymore. You are not just a walker of walls. You are the keeper.
That night, the first hard frost settles over the village. It turns the world silver in the moonlight.
The cold is coming. The long nights are coming. The raiders might come again. The wolves will certainly come.
But as you lie in your bed, listening to the wind rattle the shutters, you are not afraid.
You close your eyes. You can see the map behind your eyelids.
You visualize the world beneath you.
You see the main chamber where your father stored the grain. You see the hook where the ham hangs, curing slowly in the dark. You see the crooked beam in the corner that holds up the roof. You see the handprints of your grandfather pressed into the clay. You see the small, tentative handprint your brother Oswin made last spring. And you imagine your own handprint there, invisible but permanent.
The earth is patient.
It has been here longer than humans, and it will be here long after you are gone. It does not love you. It does not hate you. It just is.
But if you work with it, if you listen to it, if you dig the channels and seal the cracks, it will hold you.
You pull the wool blanket up to your chin. The straw mattress rustles, a dry, comfortable sound.
Your breathing slows. In, out. The sounds of the house fade, the creaking of the wood, the wind outside. The anxiety of the day dissolves into the steady rhythm of your heartbeat.
You are drifting down now, not into the tunnels, but into something deeper, into sleep.
It comes for you like the spring thaw, slow, sure, and impossible to stop.
Beneath you, the network waits. The 50-degree air sits quietly in the dark. The barrels wait. The walls wait.
You are safe. Your family is safe. The village is prepared.
You are the keeper. And tonight, your watch is over. The earth holds you. And you are home. Tonight,